Has business flatlined? You might have a busy schedule, errands, coffee meetings, all the things. But if business is slowed down, then there's a problem. And I think we can help. I'm Stefan with
Drew Sanford.
And we are the Founders Table. We like to have guests involved. We like to have people come over and talk through different business things for startups. We're kind of documenting how we're building out Elevate, which has been a very exciting journey for us. And we just wanted to share some of the things we're learning on the positive side and some of the lessons that we've learned as we failed at different things in order to make it more of a value for you. So thanks for joining us today. We're going to talk about time management and how to make the most of your day.
Love it. Love it, love it, love it. I think this is where most entrepreneurs and people in general really sometimes miss the point. So it's
Absolutely.
a good one. It's a good one.
We have a lot of people in our industry that are agents, and then we have some friends that are entrepreneurs, and they talk to us all the time about, either one of two conversations. I'm super busy. I've got all these things moving. I just can't gain traction.
Yep.
Or my schedule is kind of open in certain areas. I'm not used to this because when I had a job, I had these roles and these tasks that I had to do. And as an entrepreneur, my schedule is a little bit open. And I think that's one of the scarier places to be. So we're going to talk through both. If you're ultra busy, how do you streamline and manage that well? Mm-hmm. But even scarier, if you have some open spaces, what are you doing with that time?
Yep. This is where the A's win and the B, C's, and D's struggle.
Yeah, absolutely. And as an agent, specifically in real estate, the best and worst thing about being a real estate agent is the schedule. Like you can have days where you're showing in the evenings, you can be doing some office work, and you might look at your schedule and be like, I have kind of an opening here. Maybe I'll hit the golf course or something like that. And if you're not utilizing that time well, then you're going to find yourself in trouble.
Yep.
Like 3, 4, 5 months down the road is when you're really going to feel that. Mm-hmm. And so we have a lot of conversation with our agents about how to plan out their day and be intentional with their time. And I think the exact same thing is true for any business owner or anybody that's really trying to build something.
Yeah, absolutely. I think this is one of the foundational building blocks of the coaching that we do with people. Mm. And if you miss the mark here, it's a problem. So I think time management, and it's amazing if you say, how long do you think it takes to do this job? How long do you think it takes to do that job, this job, this job, this job? And when you start writing that stuff down, oof.
Yeah.
You want to talk about getting off? It's nuts. It's really bad. And I think entrepreneurs in particular are even worse at it because, like, in our minds, we go so fast, boom, 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 through stuff that we're like, dude, that's a 10-minute job. That's a 30-minute job. That's a 45-minute job. Well, then when you sit down and do it, guess what happens?
Oof. It's a lot longer.
We're 4 hours into this thing that was supposed to take 30 minutes. And guess what? You've pissed off your wife because you're late. You've missed an appointment. You've done this. You've done that. So understanding time and what that means in real life versus in your head is a powerful, powerful exercise. And it's something that really, really is neat to go over with people and just open the eye. You know what I mean? Just awareness. Just understanding how far off you sometimes are is a really powerful tool.
I'm really excited to have this conversation with you, Drew, because you've had different points in your career where you've had multiple businesses where you would look at your calendar and you could probably real easily say, I don't have enough time in the day, but somehow you were able to manage that correctly in order to, and I'm sure you made some mistakes along the way.
One or two. Just one or two.
But you were able to manage it in a way that really was proficient and efficient for your team.
Yep.
And so I think it'd be really cool to have a couple conversations about that, how you did that so well. Yep. And then also just what we share with our agents on our team, how you manage the time, because there are seasons in real estate where it's 100% full go. Yep. And it's like, man, when am I going to see my family this week? Things like that. And then there's seasons in real estate where it's a little bit slower. Yeah. And we got to make sure we're utilizing that.
And what's cool about this is I have a very large part of my career was in manufacturing. So like the background of that, I mean, you take manufacturing, you could take real estate, you could take accounting, you could take anything, sales of any capacity, and this applies, and I think the principles from it, and I always say business is a math equation, A plus B always equals C. We just got to plug that in. So I think if you're watching this podcast today, you need to really, even if we're talking about real estate specifically or manufacturing specifically, I think it applies and it definitely covers tons and tons and tons of demographics.
Yeah, absolutely. We're also going to have a resource that goes along with this. It's incredibly simple. It's almost as black and white as you can get.
Yep.
But I don't think enough people are doing it.
Yep.
And it's one thing that we do as a team where we literally block out our certain timeframes, our non-negotiables for the next week. We block out certain timeframes for outbound and reaching out to clients. We block out timeframes for showings, and we build out an actual calendar. How many people actually can say they put in on paper or on their phone an actual calendar that they work through? I think that
the high producers,
it's going to be them. Yeah, exactly. And so it's a really good base one to where we can get back to the basics and see where we're spending our time. And it shows us real clearly where that is. So
let's jump into why a calendar. Like why, I think that's the first thing. Like, why do you want to do this? What does a calendar look like? What are the guardrails around that?
Yeah, absolutely. I think first and foremost, just like what you had mentioned earlier, is that when we look at our time and we look at tasks that we want to do, sometimes we put an unrealistic amount of time toward finishing those tasks. And so if we actually look at our calendar and we say, all right, I've got to do this software piece for the CRM, how long is this going to take? And we block it out, and it allows us to really get an audit of how we're spending our time and what is the most useful value for our time as well. We use the term all the time, income producing activities. And that has got to be something that's taking a majority of our calendar in sales for sure.
But and I think it's a sliding scale, right? Like if we want to use a real estate agent as an example, if you have a closing and you've got 5 phone calls from current listings and you've got 3 or 4 buyers you're working with and you're just swamped in that space, well, then outbound's probably going to be a little bit less. But if you're on the other side of that, where you're like, oh my gosh, man, it's October, November, December, there's not a lot going on. Well, that's when you're planting your seeds. For the time that it's not. So it doesn't matter what that is. If you're a salesman for products, if you're not busy, you better be doing something outbound to generate new customers to get them in the funnel. If you're super swamped and busy, maybe there's not as much room for that. But if you don't block out the opposite, you're never going to get it done. So if you're slow and you don't block out outbound, you're never going to actually get outbound done, which means you're never going to get busy doing that. On the other side, if you're really busy with sales and you just stop doing outbound, and it depends on the job, obviously. But if you're really busy with clients, all of a sudden you're in a good season, but you do no outbound. Well, 2, 3, 4 months down the road,
you're going to feel it.
You may feel that you're not doing it. So I always try to coach people, look, what's a good balance, right? Everybody talks about personal balance in their life, things like that. It's no different. Look at your job, look at what you do. And I kind of use the third rule for a lot of people. If you could do a third outbound, a third business stuff, and, nurturing, talking to people, and then the third actually practicing the craft, that's a good thirds to be in. That's more of a growth standpoint, though. Let's say you're 80% busy. Well, instead of just going home and going and playing golf, whatever that is, how much can you carve out on that calendar to go do something that you need to do that you sometimes tried not to do, right?
Oh my goodness. I think this is so important because how many business owners do we know that stay working in the business instead of on the business? So they're never really looking toward outbound. They're literally just focused on getting the work done today and how that's going to stifle them in the future just as much as somebody who's not busy today. And if they're not putting the outbound in, they're going to not feel it, or it's not going to be there in the future as well. So I think you're exactly right.
One thing we did in our manufacturing company that was cool is like we went around and we said, okay, we time studied everything, right? And I'm not saying it was some scientific blah blah. It's hilarious, but we went around to everybody on the line and said, how long does it take to do your job? And we wrote it down, right? So then, when the next product comes down the line and they do it, all right, we're going to study this for the next 3 or 5 times we do your job, or 10 times, whatever it is, to get a good average. How long does it take to build this widget, or to weld this piece up, or to do this or do that? Well, all of a sudden the employees have put out there, like, it takes this much time. Okay. Well, then you can go back to them and say, all right, it was supposed to take this much time, and you took this much time. Why? Help me understand. Or it goes the other way. It's supposed to take this much time, but man, you got this thing knocked out super duper fast. What's up? So all of a sudden you can start applying time strategies to your business when you do stuff. So I think if you have something that you're building or producing or making, you have employees doing different products, I think some of that is like, you don't want to be a slave driver. You know what I mean? You're not sitting there saying, if you don't get this done, you're fired. Well, no, but how do you gracefully come along somebody and be like, hey, you're screwing off without
saying that. Oh man, it's like it's giving us the template to keep people accountable. I think as any leader of a business or of agents, if we let the agents or the employees build out what the time takes, then we're just going to be keeping them accountable, asking them questions like, all right, you said this is how long this takes, or this is where you're going to be at. Where are we at? I think it's huge. I mean, even on the real estate side specifically, we said, guys, how long in an hour, how many door hangers do you get in the average neighborhood around here? And what did they said? 50 to 60. 50 to 60. So, all right, we're going to do 4 hours, 2 days a week. How many door hangers is that? It's not hard math, right? Like we need you to do your stuff. Now, when they come back and say I only did 25, all right, why? Was it a larger neighborhood? Was more space? Who knows? And at the end of the day, it's not. We don't want to be jerks to people or our employees. We are not micromanagers. No, but it's setting expectations and it's trying to understand how much time it takes to do stuff. Because if you truly understand the time value to that, the time value proposition, now all of a sudden, how do I maximize it? And when somebody comes to you and says, look, I'm not making any money. I'm a fully commissioned salesperson. I'm not making any money. Well, there's 5 questions that I would ask. Bang, 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 bang. And you're going to know the answer to it. Well, you said how many door hangers did you get out last week? Well, 25. All right, so you worked 30 minutes, right? And you could just go through that and you can ask people these things. And I think that's one, you need to start with yourself. If you're an entrepreneur and you're doing this, you need to start with yourself. You need to sit down, write last week's calendar out. What did you do? Just write it out and look at it. I made phone calls. It's an exercise. And am I saying every single week you need to have a detailed, super outline calendar? No, but it's good to have the practice. Oh, absolutely. You're not going to do 100 push-ups without doing 20 first and then 30 and then 40 and then 50. So you got to build up to it. But on the same token, when you actually sit down and if you say, let's look at last week. If you would sit down and write out your last week's what you did, it would be amazing what you find because you're going to go, wow. Every time I talk to somebody, they say, hey, how's your week? Oh, man, I'm busy. Well, then you look at it on paper and you're like, well, I didn't get crap done. I kind of suck. And maybe you got a ton done, right? Or maybe some of those meetings that you took really weren't as valuable as the time that you spent in them. And I think that's the next kind of conversation, which we've definitely had with our guys, is talking through how to make sure that you're putting your activities, the things that you're checking off the list, into the right buckets. And so what we've done is we've talked through a positive bucket, a neutral bucket, and a negative bucket. These are time spending opportunities, I guess. So when you're building out your calendar, you have anything that's on your calendar, you got to place it in one of these 3 buckets, whether it's positive, neutral, or negative. So could you kind of talk us through what a positive time frame or time block would be? Oh man, anything that's income producing. If you're doing something that directly produces income. Now, don't gray that. I mean, it's flat out, I'm going to talk to a client about buying a product. I'm going to do this about getting to sell this, or I'm going to meet with a new person about whatever that is. Here's specific, there we go. Specific outbound that we're doing. It's going to have a result or time in front of a camera, like recording. If you go back to the 3 types of buckets that I brought you into, there's outbound activities that are looking for new clients. Then you've got management of current clients and how you're doing that, which both of those can have positives, right? You know what I mean? There's income producing things with all of those. And then the third one would be something that you're actually, if you're a real estate agent, actually when you're producing, when you're writing contracts, doing the deal, talking about stuff, working with agents, negotiations, all that type of stuff. Now, spin this into a different business, Stefan. Let's talk about a accountant. What are the 3 buckets for the accounts? So I would say obviously positive, negative, and neutral. For an accountant, though, I mean, I don't know that world. I mean, it really applies with all of them. I mean, because you could still say there's outbound to go get new clients. You need to communicate with your old clients, whether that's sending them good information, literature, keeping them up to date about new tax laws, things coming down the pipe, and then again doing the actual job. Now, if you're an accountant doing a third of your time, obviously you're getting a couple $100 billable hour in one of those thirds. It may not be a third. It may be 10%, 10%, and then 80%, or if you're an established accountant. But if you're not an established accountant and you're kind of getting one of those, if you're on a pay package where you get paid for produced hours, it may shift. So I think that's something to understand as we talk about this. To me, a third is if you're kind of in that medium starting range from that standpoint. You've got some clients, you've got some work, you've got some stuff. And I think we try to grow people and we try to grow our employees. So I think the lens that I'm looking through talking about this is
if you're trying to, if you've got a business and you're an entrepreneur and you own it and you're trying to get people to produce for you, that's where kind of these numbers come from. And I know I'm digging a lot on that, but I just want people to understand that's a sliding scale of how that works.
And some of that, like as you grow, you're going to have to just outsource. Like it's not that it's even going to go down. It's just you're outsourcing that to somebody else. I think, or to a program.
If all of a sudden if you're 10-10-80 and you don't have time and you're really, I mean, obviously if you're maxed out, you're probably pretty good at talking to people. You do a really good job in your field. At that point, then you need to look at that 80 and say, okay, can I get somebody here to help pull off 40% of this so I can go talk to more people? Exactly. If I talk to more people, I get more business. If I get more business, we make more money. So what are some of the more mundane jobs that don't necessarily take my skill set to do that? And how do I offload those to other people? And that's scalability. And I mean, that's obviously we're going to go into that in this whole series. But
that'll be next down the road. But no, that's a great thought though. It's not even that the third really declines. It's how you allocate that. It's how it looks differently. So absolutely. So so we're talking through positive, the income producing activities. These are the direct results that we're going to find that we're working with clients. We're working through contracts. We're outbound. We are bringing income into the conversation. Then we have neutral. Let's go to neutral instead of negative.
This is the danger zone.
Yeah, this is the scary one. This is where people can really get lost. And a lot of entrepreneurs and agents, I think this is where we see them spending the most of their time, which is kind of scary.
Yeah, and it's you could be on each side of the coin when you're doing that, and you can trick yourself into believing something that's not there. You know, and I think that's what I see is I see a lot of people that say, "Oh, I'm doing an income producing activity. I'm going to the Chamber of Commerce meeting today and here we go." Yeah, no.
There's so many different, let's say, networking events such as realtor meetings or meeting with vendors and lenders that are all great things to do. But they're not directly going to grow your income, at least not immediately. They could have some long-term plays, just like Chamber. You could have some connections that you make there, but it really is, it's how you utilize the time while you're there. And to be honest, there are so many, it's crazy in our world how many vendors will reach out to you to have lunch or to meet up and take an hour, 2 hours of your time, and how those could be great conversations, but we want to utilize those in time frames that we are not doing income producing.
One thing on the real estate side that we've kind of set boundaries around, and this is what's really important as a business owner. This is your game, your world. People are playing in it, and that's not always that way. But when you have employees or you have yourself that you're looking at, like, you need to set the boundaries around what positive income producing activities are. Very clear and defined. No questions asked. Neutral. So when we look at the neutral boundaries, all right, the Chamber of Commerce meeting with our people or talking to vendors, like on the vendor talking side, like that's on the negative side of our agents can go talk to a loan officer every day for 2 hours. No questions asked. Go get lunch, 11 to 1, gone.
You can get a free lunch every single day if you wanted to.
And that's not what we're here to do. And how often do the loan officers actually, they're dealing with tons of real estate agents. Maybe you strike it and it's your best friend, and but that's not what we're here for. That is not a high income producing activity from that standpoint. Is it great to have a relationship with them? Absolutely. Is it good to have good communication with a bunch of them? Absolutely. Do you want to show your face and be nice to everybody? Absolutely. But we're here to make money. We put parameters around our guys and we say, what are their time frames on that?
Yeah, really. And we utilize this in our daily life as well, is in our work hours, we typically don't start to talk too much with clients before 9 o'clock. Typically, that's when most of our clients are moving. Some of our clients are different, but we're not going to usually show a house before 9 o'clock to begin with. And so, and title companies aren't open till then, banks aren't open. So we've got some time here. And so what we talk a lot about is if we're going to meet with another agent or a vendor in the field, then we're going to do it before 9 o'clock. So we do a lot of 7 a.m., 8 a.m. meetings. And I think that there is value, like you said, to being around the people, to be in your industry, to getting to know. There's long-term value to that, 100%. But we have to make sure we're not going to be utilizing two of our most premier hours of the day on conversations like that rather than meeting with clients.
And that may be different for you. You may have, I know some of our manufacturing companies, stuff like that, like the guys get out there at 6 or whatever in the morning, and that was like the wind up, right? Like we had made sure everything was going, everything's smooth, all the stuff that breaks, you get it fixed. So maybe that time's not good. Maybe it's 2 to 4. when everybody winds down and starts doing that, that's your time to do it. So it didn't have to be that. But I think in our world, you got to look at your industry and your niche and what you're doing and what your goals are. And the big point of this is, if you're going to go do some neutral products that's not really directly linking to that, set a time and get those done in that set time, and follow the rules. Follow your rules with that. You don't want to see your salespeople out when there's premier stuff going on.
Yeah.
Messing around.
Absolutely. And we understand that our goal is never going to be 100% positive throughout the day. Like there's a purpose for the neutral bucket, and there is a reason why it's not a negative bucket by any means, but we've got to make sure when we're looking at our calendar that 70-80% of our day is positive if we're going to actually run a successful business.
Yep.
Like if that's not our long-term goal, if we're only wanting to coast, then that's somebody else's prerogative. Yep. But for us, for our team, for the people that we're interacting with, 70-80% of the day has got to be
because
positive.
if you go back to what we've talked about, if you go back and write last week's calendar out and you write out what you did last week and you start identifying positive, negatives, and neutrals, and you look at that and go, wow, I have 50% of these are neutral. Some of them are clearly negative. And wow, the positives, I really only did a little bit of positive during the week. Yeah. And all of a sudden you say, okay, if I change that, and if I shift it, if I go from 10%, 20% positive to 50, your output goes through the roof. It absolutely goes through the roof. And it's not even a material thing other than it's awareness as an owner of, I'm going to do this correctly. I'm going to set the guidelines. I'm going to go do it myself. Once I learn that this works, and I'm going to teach and coach my people how to do that. Yeah. And when you start applying these fundamental building blocks to your business, again, to get to that top 80%, it takes 20% of good effort to get into the 80%. And that's what we're trying to get at. If we can coach you and you can learn how to do some of this stuff, it will change your life. It'll change your family's life. It'll change everything. It's really good information.
Oh, man, it's huge. So, and I think as we talk to a lot of new agents, man, how much of their time is spent in the negative to neutral is crazy. It's like they're literally focusing just completely on the wrong things. Yep. And I think part of it's the industry that tells us, hey, we need to do all these events and things and go to as agents. But I think part of it is really just lack of awareness of what I'm supposed to do. Yep. And when you have that open space, you've got to be utilizing it. So last is negative. Talk to us a little bit about what a negative time frame would look like.
Everything that's not income producing activities.
One thing I think about is inefficiency.
Yeah.
Whenever you're going between meetings, how are you utilizing the time and space? Whether it's literally the route that you drive, like, hey, maybe I need to put out 3 signs on my way to this thing. I'm going to stop at these 3 places and hit it. Or make sure that you're not just wasting a bunch of time in the car rather than just getting directly to your space. Another one is talking to people in the office too much or talking to agents on the phone.
I don't roll my eyes, and I think I just rolled my eyes on camera. But that's the exact truth. If you guys get there and you start your business 9 to 5 and everybody gets there at 9 and they spend 30 minutes messing around talking water cooler talk, that's fine. But maybe you need to write that down. All right, guys, we're going to sit down and do our calendar for the week. I haven't seen any of you guys get moving before 9:30, so I'm going to give you 9:30 as a negative just to get up and going. And who wants to hear that, right? And I'm not, again, I don't want to sound like the big bad wolf of the group, but
And we get like our office space is very like there's a lot of camaraderie. Like we're all working toward the same goals. Like we're pushing hard, and so there's a part of it that's the team aspect that is we're working together on goals, and so there's going to be some of that. Yeah, it's just a part of the team.
Yep.
But
I think the real negatives is you get done with a meeting and then you go to McDonald's and then you drive around town, and you waller around and get over here. You stop by and go pick up something at Bass Pro, or you do like those are easy ones that happen.
Or scrolling, or YouTube, or going out, and I mean even golf. I'm a golfer. I love to golf. Yep. If I'm not golfing with a prospective client or somebody that is going to be having good conversation, then it's probably a negative for me. Like I've got to utilize that. And there's times for you to have stress relievers, or there's times for you to take a break. That's not what we're talking about.
But we're talking about work.
Yeah.
Exactly. I mean, because by no means do I want you to stop playing golf for fun, right? But those are on your scheduled times to go do that. And again, if we're looking through the lens of somebody trying to grow their business, right? So if you're trying to grow your business, it's not a bad thing. Like we have niches for all our team. Like if when we do coaching, I try to coach, like, what's your niche? Identify and really specify that type of stuff. And then let's go target clients that are in that area, in that range, and then go do that. So if we have an outdoorsman that loves shooting, which we do, or a golfer, whatever that is, like I want you to go shoot and play golf, or, you know what I mean? Whatever that is, I want you to stay in that niche. If you love fishing and you can get clients that like to fish too, then go fish, because guess what? That's not work. You're not going to feel like that's work. You're going to love what you do. You're going to have great connections with people. And at some point, those people are probably going to have great connections with you and want to do business with you.
Yeah.
But you got to put yourself around the right people. So if you go in and you do some of this stuff, and I go play golf with the banker and this person, like, come on, man. Like, that's a neutral at best.
Mm-hmm.
You know, are you building relationships? Sure. But if you're not taking somebody that's an income producing client, that, hey, you could buy a house from me, or hey, you could be a accountant, prospect for me, or I'm a builder and you may want, or a handyman or whatever that is, and I could use, we could do business together. Those are who you need to take. So you need to have the lens if you go to these events to go do that. And I try to break this down super simple. We have different workflows for people, and we put them in different buckets, is what we call them in our groups, and then we put them in email automations. So the thought is if you have growing families, golf friends, outdoors men or women, hit me with another one.
You've got sports
fans,
music,
right? So
cars.
Yeah, it could be anything, but for those specific things, well, then we build individual email campaigns from them. So I've set up email campaigns for our clients to try to get them in their niches. Mm-hmm. And how I try to dumb this down is I don't care what you do. I don't care how you get them. I don't care how it happens, but every day, every week, every month, you need to get a certain number of people for your buckets. So at least if you go play golf with somebody that maybe you know well, maybe you don't, but you get their name, phone number, email, we could throw them in a bucket, and then we could start communicating with them regularly, right?
Yeah.
And that's what you have to have the mindset is, when I go to do an event with somebody or I go do something, there's an outcome for it that is going to put them in an income producing bucket. And that may be an email marketing campaign. That may be a text message once a month written down in Excel that I need to communicate with my client. Yep. It does something. So however that looks in your world, you gotta get them where you can communicate with them. And there's a million ways that we can go into that.
That's a whole nother podcast that we'll hit down the road for sure. But no, you're exactly right. So how are we making sure that time frame is being used for that purpose? I think that's the biggest question. Yep. And that is what so many people just tend to struggle with in this world.
Yep.
So
yep. This is a foundational conversation with how you run your business and how you do stuff. And I was terrible at this 8 years ago, 10 years ago, 5 years ago. As I've developed and as we've grown businesses and been a part of different startups and things like that, you start realizing there's a few blocks that you have to do really well. Mm-hmm. This is an A+ block that you have to do really, really well as an owner. So if you're an entrepreneur and you want to scale, you want to grow, and even if it's you yourself and I, me, myself and I, if it's just you that's in this business, that's it. It doesn't matter. You have to do this really well. And you can't say, oh, when I get to here, or when I do this, or when I have another employee, or when you're going to make excuses. Yep. Don't make excuses. Write your calendar down, figure out what it looks like, and really, really be intentional in what you do.
Man, I've also felt that as we've been doing this in our business, it's given me some more headspace that's open, because all of the non-negotiable like networking meetings that we have in the mornings or client meetings, I've got on the calendar, and to where sometimes my calendar gets muddy. My brain gets muddy because I don't know exactly what's going on throughout the week. Mm-hmm. And so if I can tell myself I'm going to do this amount of outbound on Tuesday, I've got this meeting on Wednesday morning, I've got this closing on Thursday, then I can just go into the week with a bunch of clarity right up front. Yep. That gives me the ability to really look beyond that. So,
we all say when we see somebody, oh, how you doing? Oh, great. How's life? Oh, busy. Right? Like that's what everybody says. Yeah. And it's like, is it that busy? Are you really doing what you need to do busy wise for your goal at hand?
Yeah.
And I think that's what this is. This podcast today is really about is, first off, work on your calendar. Make sure you understand that. Have a good base there. Second part of that is positive, negative, and the neutral.
Absolutely.
And which ones they are. I do want to reiterate a little bit. Let's talk about some neutrals that could go either way, and talk through that.
Yeah, absolutely. So first of all, the first thing I think about for me is we get a bunch of people that call or text me, whatever. They're like, hey, let's meet. I'm an agent. You're an agent. Let's talk through the market, or maybe some educational things, or with vendors. Like that's a big one for me that I get a lot of. And in my mind, I really do think that there's some positives to that. Like that it's not just a negative. I do really like to interact with people within the industry. But it, like we said, if it's during business hours when I should be working with outbound or clients or contract, then that's where it becomes literally a negative. But if I can put that in time frames that are not during those hours, that are high producing hours, then that's where it becomes a positive to me. If even in that, it's probably still more of a neutral. It's not a direct income producing activity, but it's
a solid neutral instead of what could be a 2 o'clock, 4 o'clock meeting, whatever that is, when you should be getting work done.
Absolutely.
Yep. And again, it's businesses. It doesn't matter whether it's bass fishing or whatever, high success people doing high sports, you name it. The devil's in the details on that stuff. And I think that's one of those detail items that by taking a neutral out of a primo spot and moving it to these are my organized time blocks to deal with those. Yeah. That's one of those micro wins in business that as you keep coming up with micro wins, you start really, really, really putting big pieces together to have a really successful business.
Yeah. I think one of the most devastating things I see from agents who say that they're always busy, they don't get enough time with the family and things like that, is that when you look at how they're spending their time, they're spending a majority of their day in neutrals. And then they're pushing all their productivity to when they probably should be with their family. And just like we do this with business, and we'll have this conversation later, is we should do the exact same thing with our family as well, right? And so if they're pushing all their work, productivity time, those income producing activities to when they could be with their family or should be with their family. And they're saying, hey, I'm struggling because my wife says I'm not here, the whole thing.
Guilty
and it's
as
like,
charged.
When you look at the calendar though, and you see you had this great lump of time here. Obviously some of your clients can't look at houses at 2 p.m. or whatever. Maybe they have to look at 6, but there are so many things we can do that we can put into that time instead of just maybe hanging out or standing around or wasting it in some ways. That, man, it would be a game changer for so many families. And I think that's part of why we're even talking about this is because it, as an entrepreneur, as a business owner, as an agent, I mean, this is one of the hardest things to do, to manage your time. It's just flat out. Like, it's consuming. It's fun. Like when work is fun, when you enjoy it, it's like, I want to do this all the time. There's something in us. It's like, let's talk about this. Let's live this every single minute of every day. And we've got to find ways to balance that out. Because for the short term, I mean, it's awesome. But the long-term effects of that are devastating.
There's, and every entrepreneur that's done it for a while knows this. There's seasons up and down of like different things that are happening, right? And
that's one of my favorite words with my wife. Seasons. Hey, this is a busy season. Hey, but you
that only counts for how long. Let's put a boundary around it.
You've got to be able to switch it though too. You've got to say, hey, this is a season where I'm going to be super focused and intentional with this time frame.
100%.
But you're exactly right.
And I think that's let's talk about the family side of this because I feel like. If anybody's going to say, oh, I'm going to try my calendar, well, what's the first thing they're going to write down? Well, I'm going to do this with work. I'm going to do that with work. I'm going to get this done with work. I'm going to get that with work. It probably should be what? Here's my Sunday block off for church. Here's my Wednesday small group. Here's my kids games. Here's my this. And then where do I put work in next? And that's how it should be now. What's realistic or not, I think that's up to everybody. But I think...
And as you're building a business, I mean, there are going to be sacrifices both ways. Like there's going to be sacrifices to the business because you're going to make sure family is most important. But there's going to be times where you're not going to be able to go to every football game or basketball
And here's
game.
the thing. There's people that I talk to and they go, well, I've got this job and it's a good job, but I've always wanted to do whatever that is. And that's a trade-off, right? Because if you ask an owner, well, why did you do it? Because I wanted more time off with my family. I wanted to create good wealth. I wanted to blah, 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 blah. Yeah, but there's a season when some of that doesn't happen. What is that going to look like for you? And sometimes it's a better decision to say, look, I'm going to do this as a side thing for a little while until I jump full in, until, I've got kids right now in sport. Do they need their dad more or do they need their dad to have a business more? You know what I mean? And that's where I think that you have to really look at your situation and figure out if that's what your goal is in life. Because sometimes there's a season that now's the time to try this and sometimes there's a season that no, we need to wait a little bit. And and I'm all for put a foot on the gas and go, but you have to use good sense with what's going on in your life to justify it.
Man, and it's a tricky thing. The reason why is because as dads, you think to yourself, I mean, for me at least, hey, I'm building this thing to provide a good life for my child, right? Mm-hmm. And so we're like, I tell myself, hey, if there's any more sacrifices that I need, whatever that looks like, time wise, hey, this is for the betterment of my family down the road, whatever. Mm-hmm. But you can't miss the family moments now, and trade it, because what we're gonna find out is, man, we should have been spending time with the family.
Yeah, that's me.
Now,
yeah, that's me. I mean, my 9-year-old Beckett, I went to everything I could go to, but you can make an excuse that even if you're there, you're still on the phone talking with this and doing that, and making this happen and doing that. And like at some point, you're going to look back and be like, I literally missed his whole younger age group. And now having my youngest, I'm like, I'm not that value to me to get that back. And I'm never going to get it back with Beckett, right? Mm. But the value that I have to see Everett, our youngest, I'm not missing it. It's just not going to happen, you know. And then you feel like you got to play catch up as a dad. You're like, man, I really didn't do a good job, and that's something you got to be really careful of, you know, as you walk through life. And there's a million different ways to do that. But I think that goes back to, that's what today's point is, put it on the calendar, because it's amazing if you write it down. My dad always says, you write it down, put it in your pocket, you touch it, and every time you touch that note in your pocket, you're going to think, this is what I need to be doing, right? Yeah. And I think that's one of those things that if you write it down on the calendar, whether you hit the goals or whether you don't, it is what it is, right? Mm-hmm. But I guarantee you, if you write it down, you're going to have a way better week than if you don't write it down.
Absolutely. Today was kind of a technical conversation on some of the calendar stuff. Yep. I think that we should take some time in the near future to talk through really the why that helps us drive to making sure we hit those goals, because you're exactly right. I think within business, within faith, within family, like we've got to have those non-negotiables on our calendar, and that way we can move the other things around. And how many times? I mean, when I talk to clients and I say, look, I've got an appointment set at 6:00, the clients that we want to work with and the clients that we're working with, they understand that. They've got families. They understand, hey, there's a few non-negotiables that this person has. Yep. It's not the end of the world if we move that an hour down the road. Yeah. And that is the kind of respect that I think that you'll earn and grow as a business owner. And
it's communication, right? Like if you communicate that with clients, potential clients, hey, I've got some boundaries with time frame with family stuff, you know, and it doesn't have to be ugly. It's just, this is my family stuff that I do here. Whether I'm a real estate agent, hey, you know, Sundays are our day off. You look at them, we'll look any other day of the week that you want, but Sundays we're not going to be doing blah, 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 or whatever the boundary needs to be for you and your family. Like, look, we're going to do something every Monday as a family. We play games. I think just communicating that and being upfront and honest with people, you will gain way more respect by having those boundaries, and people go, wow, this is somebody that I want to work with because they value their family, because they value their time with their wife, they value their time with their kids, and that type of stuff. In the people that don't value that are like, I'm not working with him if he's here to provide service to me. Yeah, you're right. And somebody else, I'm sure, would love to provide service for you because I'm not it.
Yeah, absolutely. We'll talk about rest at some point. One thing we do at Elevate is we really try to get our guys to take, we call it a sabbatical, a day off, to where they're kind of, I mean, as an agent, you're on your phone 24/7 and you work 7 days a week typically, right? And you're just, and it's really hard to find those boundaries. And so we like to try to, it doesn't always happen, but have one of our agents have a day where they are able to get offline. Yep. And the cool thing is, though, is that when that happens, I mean, the clients, if something needs to be done, then there's a whole team around them that's supporting the client throughout. So whether it's a Sunday, a Tuesday, whatever the day is.
And it depends on the career, right? You know, somebody probably, if they have a tax problem on a Saturday, I don't know that anything's going to matter by Monday, right?
Exactly.
You know, and I think that's, and if you are in something that's a 24/7 type of gig and you have a day that's off, that's where you need to have a buddy, a friend, or referral partner, somebody that you can try to do that. But I would also go back to being clear with the clients. You know, you might have a Saturday voicemail that's, hey, it's Saturday. I'm spending time with my family. If it's an emergency, shoot me a text. If not, I'll catch you tomorrow or Monday.
Yeah. No, I think that's super good. So finding those boundaries is really hard as a new entrepreneur, as somebody that's building. I mean, there's a lot to that. But if you can start it now, it's going to be a lot easier than if you're trying to teach an old dog new tricks. You know what I'm saying?
It's a fact.
So, yeah. So I think that's our conversation for today.
Yeah, I love it. All right. Guys, thank you so much. This is the Founders Table with Stefan and Drew. We love having you. If you have any questions, comments, put them below. Have a great day.